Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the Be Quran podcast, your space for spiritual reflection, Qur'anic insight, and guided discovery. I'm your host, Ali.
And I'm Fatima. Today's episode explores a bold and powerful theme, the idea of Shia Islam as a historical and contemporary voice of resistance. We'll be drawing on insights from a lecture by Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani, looking at how principles like fitra, justice, and sacrifice have shaped a distinct legacy of standing up to oppression.
It's a reflection on courage, conscience, and conviction, and how this resistance, rooted in the example of the Prophet's family, continues to echo in the modern world.
Let's begin. Bismillah.
Today we're embarking on an exploration. Look into some really fascinating material. It zeroes in on a very specific and impactful perspective: Shia Islam as a historical and contemporary voice of resistance. Our focus is extracting insights from a lecture by Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani. And just a quick note, as always here at the Deep Dive, our mission is to unpack the arguments and insights from the sources you give us. We don't endorse any particular political or theological viewpoint. We're here to understand why this claim is being made, at least as Dr. Nakshawani presents it. Our goal is really to give you a clear understanding of the arguments, helping you get well-informed, quickly. So the source, it immediately sets the stage. It highlights a striking observation from, say, the past 18 months or so. Dr. Nakshawani argues that Shia Islam has emerged with flying colors, despite historical misrepresentations.
And he suggests this has led even non-Shia to, praise their stance against certain actions.
That's right, and that perception, according to Dr. Nakshawani, partly arose because many non-Shia leaders, he specifically mentions Gulf leaders, Malaysians, Indonesians, Jordanians, even the leader referring to himself as the Amir al-Mu'minin of the Ottoman Empire. They were seen as, largely silent.
Silence in the face of what the source calls the powerful figures of the time, referencing people like Netanyahu.
The argument Dr. Nakshawani makes is that during this period, only the sons of Muhammad and al-Muhammad, meaning the Prophet's family and their followers, particularly Shia leaders, they were the ones consistently standing up. And what's really interesting, as the source points out, is this kind of surprising phenomenon. You see non-Shia viewers commenting on Shia videos, saying things like, "I am Sunni, but I agree with him."
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so from Dr. Nakshawani's perspective, this reflects a growing sort of alignment, with the Shia stance on these issues.
That's a powerful contemporary observation. And Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani draws a direct line, doesn't he, between these modern voices and the demographics of certain nations.
Absolutely, yeah. The material points out that many countries currently seen as strong voices of resistance, they're either majority Shia or have significant Shia communities.
Okay, like which ones?
Specifically, Yemen is mentioned, where the Houthis are a prominent force. Lebanon, where you have groups devoted to the Prophet and his family, often called lovers of Muhammad and al-Muhammad, with a strong presence, especially in areas like Ashur and also Iraq and Iran.
Got it. So this current observation, it leads us right to the core question this analysis wants to explore. Why, according to Dr. Nakshawani, do the Shia possess this consistent and strong voice of resistance? It suggests it's not random, right? It's rooted in something much deeper. He points to underlying secrets, as he calls them, that fuel this stance. Where does he start with that?
He starts with a really foundational concept in Shia thought called fitra. Yeah, fitra. It translates roughly to innate morality. It's described as like a primordial nature within every single human being, an intuitive compass, you could say, that allows them to differentiate between good and evil without needing religious revelation first.
Interesting. So like basic human decency.
Kind of, yeah. Think of it this way. You instinctively know telling the truth is good or telling a lie is bad. The source uses an example. If you saw someone being unjustly hurt act on the street, maybe in Manchester, he says, even if you're not religious, your innate nature, your fitra, might compel you to intervene or at least question what's happening.
Right, that feeling of this isn't right.
Exactly. That inclination to act when someone is unjustly treated is seen as part of our pure, inherent nature. Now, it's important to clarify this specific emphasis on fitra isn't, universally agreed on by all Muslims, but for Shia, it's a fundamental conviction. Allah inspires this moral discernment within us. Revelation, then, it doesn't create the morality. It directs it, it guides it, sets boundaries for this innate moral structure we already have.
Okay, so it's an inherent moral compass guided by revelation. But beyond that, the source argues the Quran itself gives a clear duty to speak out.
Yes, absolutely, a duty against injustice. Dr. Nakshawani highlights several key verses here.
Which ones stand out?
Well, the first is Surah 3, verse 110. You are the best example of a nation. You enjoin that which is good, and you forbid that which is evil, with their belief in Allah. So from this perspective, being the best nation isn't just about rituals like praying and fasting. It's about actively combating oppression, standing for justice.
Actively.
Yes, and this active role, the source really emphasizes, requires deep faith. Because speaking out, it's rarely easy. It often comes with consequences. So that verse kind of elevates forbidding evil. It's fundamental to being the best nation.
That's quite a take on what nationhood means there.
It is. It's a very active definition, and it connects directly to how you act against injustice.
Right. There are levels, aren't there?
Exactly. Building on this, the Prophet's teachings outline 3 levels for forbidding evil. The lowest level, the absolute minimum, is that your heart feels pain when you witness injustice. Dr. Nakshawani argues, if your heart doesn't bleed, as he puts it, when you see suffering, you really need to question your spiritual state.
That's the baseline.
That's the baseline. The second level is using your tongue, speaking out against injustice, verbal condemnation. And the third, the ultimate level, is picking up a sword to defend. This perspective underscores that for a follower of the Ahl Abat, the Prophet's family, death is, it's a certainty anyway. So if it means dying while speaking out against injustice, then so be it. The Imams themselves, the source points out, were often poisoned or killed precisely because they were these unwavering voices of resistance.
Okay, so heart, tongue, action. What other verses are key?
Then there's Surah 22, verses 39-40. It states, permission has been given to the believers to fight because they have been oppressed, especially when they're forced out of their homes for no reason except that they say, we believe in Allah. This connects directly to the concept of jihad, understood here, according to the source, as a defensive struggle.
Defensive.
Yes, against subjugation and oppression. Dr. Nakshawani draws a parallel to people being displaced from their homes today. He describes scenarios like you're living in this land, someone comes and says, this is my land because God has given me that land. From the source's viewpoint, that's just unacceptable. And the Quran gives permission to defend yourself.
In those circumstances.
Right. And there was one more verse mentioned about not relying on oppressors.
Yes, Surah 11, verse 113. It delivers a powerful warning. Do not incline to the oppressor, for hellfire awaits you. Other than Allah, you have no guardians. This is interpreted as a clear caution against relying on oppressors for things like trade agreements, finances.
Practical things.
Exactly. They will ultimately let you down. He uses the example of Piers Morgan. In his view, Morgan initially defended one side, then shifted his stance when faced with what he saw was blatant injustice, and then he faced criticism from those he'd previously supported. Oh, okay. And what's fascinating here really is this idea that even if you don't win immediately, like on the battlefield, speaking out leaves a vibration, a resonant impact for future generations. So the purpose from this perspective isn't just about the immediate win. It's about the lasting impact, ensuring that legacy of resistance carries on.
That completely reframes winning, doesn't it? It's about the principle enduring, not just the immediate outcome. Powerful. And this isn't just theory, right? Dr. Nakshawani argues it's embodied in their leaders' history.
The DNA of resistance, he calls it.
Indeed, the source really emphasizes that all prophets throughout history weren't just spiritual guides. They were fundamentally voices of resistance against
The injustice of their time.
not just about prayer and ritual. Not at all. You see it, the source says, with King David against Goliath, Moses confronting Pharaoh, even Jesus going into the market to challenge injustice openly, and Prophet Muhammad himself resisting practices like burying girls alive or financial scams in Mecca.
Every prophet, the source states, taught that when you see blatant injustice, you don't just watch. Your heart feels it, your tongue speaks.
Or you take a stand. Okay, and that legacy flows directly into the imams.
Directly, yeah. The material explains this lineage of resistance. Fatima Zahra, the prophet's daughter, is highlighted. She's called the first Shia of Ali, the first follower, really embodying his principles. She became this incredibly vocal voice of resistance against the first caliph. Over what specifically? Especially concerning her rights to the land of Faiduk, which she believed was her inheritance from her father. Her choice to speak out, even though it was dangerous for her, is deeply honored every year by Shia communities. It's part of their blood, as the source puts it. Even though she was buried secretly, her majalis, these commemorative gatherings, they aren't just rituals. They're seen as powerful acts of remembrance, renewing that commitment to her principled stand.
It happens globally. That's compelling, her direct action. What about Imam Ali himself, the first imam?
Imam Ali, in his dying will, famously declared, "Oppose the oppressor and support the oppressed." And the source highlights this applies to anyone oppressed, Muslim or non-Muslim. It's universal.
Universal justice.
Exactly. And Imam Hussain, another imam, he shared this profound insight. He said the distance between the heavens,
And the earth is basically the cry of an oppressed person in prayer.
Allah hears it immediately.
Wow, so the prayer of the oppressed has immense power, immediately heard.
That's the belief, yes. It raises important questions about that power. But the greatest example, the absolute pinnacle of this DNA of resistance, according to Dr. Nakshawani, is Imam Hussain.
Right, Karbala.
Karbala, the conflict with Yazid, who the source characterizes as like the powerful figure or oppressor of today. It culminated in Imam Hussein's famous declaration, "A man like me does not pledge allegiance to a man like him." But crucially, the source explains, Imam Hussain wasn't bloodthirsty. He wasn't looking for a fight. He actively tried to avoid it. He actively tried to negotiate peace. Right up until the morning of Ashura, the day of the battle, he even had apparently a 3-hour conversation with Omar bin Saad, the opposing commander. He was seeking alternatives. Let me go back to Medina. Let me go to Kufa, trying to find a way out.
Yes, but according to the narration, Shimr bin Ziljashan, another figure there, basically destroyed those negotiations. So the tragedy of Karbala, it was precipitated by Omar bin Saad's ultimatum that morning. Submit to Yazid or be killed.
Submit or die. That was the choice. And from that stand came the enduring motto, the Shia DNA, never will we be humiliated. This legacy, Dr. Nakshawani argues, resonates today. He mentions figures like Ayatollah Muhammad Baqir al-Assad, executed in 1980, but his message lived on. And the source notes his executor was himself eventually executed. It's presented as this enduring impact echoing history, a cycle of resistance and consequence.
You could say that. The source even shares a powerful quote, apparently from a Sunni Palestinian woman. Reflecting on Shia practices, she reportedly said, "All you would show us is them beating their chests. Maybe we should start beating our chests. Because if beating their chests for Hussein made them men of principle, then maybe we should do it now as well."
That's quite a statement, linking the ritual to the principle.
It is. And finally, Dr. Nakshawani briefly touches on the belief in the return of the last Imam, Imam Mahdi. The belief is that he will return to ensure a world full of tyranny becomes a world full of justice
And a world of peaceful existence, ultimately avenging Imam Hussain. Okay, so through this exploration of Dr. Nakshawani's material, we've definitely seen how, in his view at least, resistance is woven right into Shia thought, from that innate moral compass, the fitra, to clear Qur'anic commands and these powerful, defiant legacies of their figures, especially Imam Hussain.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is that unwavering commitment to never be humiliated, choosing principled resistance over submission. Even when the odds are completely stacked against you, it's tied to this deep-rooted belief that knowledge is valuable when it's understood and applied, and that critical thinking is essential.
Well, we hope this examination of the source material has given you, our listener, a useful shortcut to being well-informed on this specific aspect of Shia Islam.
As presented by Dr. Nakshawani. And maybe this raises an important question for you to consider. Given this deep historical and theological grounding that Dr. Nakshawani lays out, what does this particular understanding of principled resistance mean for how you think about standing against injustice? How might it influence your perspective on current global events? What really stands out to you from all this?
Thanks for joining us on this podcast episode.
Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep seeking the truth.